All right, you're live.
This way. Great. All right. Yeah, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Anderson. Ms. Capel.
Here.
Mr. McDade.
Here.
Ms. McNabb.
Here.
Ms. Mumford. Mr. Norton.
Here.
Mr. O'Connell. Ms. Ray.
Here.
And Ms. Stubblefield.
Here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a quorum.
All right. And now we're asked to approve the October meeting minutes. Were there any corrections to those? They look good to me. They look good to y'all. Motion to approve?
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Yep.
Aye. All
Yeah.
right. Are there any citizen comments? Nope. Okay. New business. So we have our public hearing this evening. So did anybody submit any comments to you?
I have not heard anything.
Public hearing 1.
This is public hearing number 1. Peter, do you like to speak?
On the affordable housing?
We may have some members of the public here.
Okay.
But I just wanted to give a little housekeeping. So this is the first public hearing that was advertised. Didn't hear anything back. So I opened it in December to have a second public hearing to try to maybe gin up the word, and hopefully we can get some responses. If not in person, then by email. You know, just if somebody wants to send any emails into me, then I would pass that along to you. So that would be another avenue people can submit comments. And then the survey, I apologize, has not been done yet. It's kind of complicated getting 6 surveys and figuring out how to logistically get that to the different people. So that will be coming soon, and that will be bringing more of the public comments to you. So tonight, public hearing number 1, and then we'll start right there. Do that first.
Okay. Are either of you public tonight?
Yeah, I'll speak real quick.
Okay.
Chris Bazell, 310 East Hudson. First off, I appreciate you guys taking a look at this. It's a big, big issue. I think that I'm glad we're taking a closer look. One of the things I just wanted to bring to your attention, during the course of my research and conversations on this subject, I have talked to the chief. It looks like every time we lose an employee with the public service, it's $60,000 if we lose a police officer, for example. So if any kind of turnover, we're spending money whether we realize it or not. So if we lose 3 people, that's $180,000 that we're spending, that perhaps if we address this issue, it may enable us to keep these people. One, we keep better experience, we keep the team and so forth intact. But when we're looking at dollars and cents on this, I hope we realize that some of this money might be already being spent. We just don't realize it.
Alrighty, thank you. Any other members of the public?
Okay. Well, we'll save that for next time too. Somebody brought us that info last time as well. So yeah, it's definitely worth considering.
But they had spoken with.
Huh?
They had spoken with.
Andrew,
With Chris.
Andrew calculated it, and I gave that to you,
Yeah.
what it would be his estimate, which was a conservative estimate, he said, of what it cost him for one person to turn over.
Okay. So updates on affordable housing options.
Alrighty, so under your packet, there's just a plain piece of paper, and this is something that I've kind of synthesized I think I called it a menu in your email. This is a menu of options that y'all can choose from to decide how we're going to address affordable housing. And so I broke them down into categories. You know this because this is from everything you've heard so far. But what I would like to do is to get a little bit of feedback from y'all, some discussion on where you're kind of leaning, not just a one answer, but maybe just striking through a couple of them that you don't think that you would want to offer, so that I could do a little bit more research and dive deeper into it for you next time, to have a little bit more information on the ones you think you might be leaning towards. So we've talked everything about this, the public-private partnerships. That would be finding a nonprofit organization who's already doing this work and supporting them financially to do it here in Folly Beach. Financial assistance would be either subsidies to individuals, and there's lots of different categories of that can be restricted to. So to them for help with paying their rent, or to landlords who would, or a homeowner, to rent out a room or to rent out a whole house, to give them some sort of subsidy for offering that. Then the zoning changes there's a lot of zoning changes, but the ones specific to Folly Beach that would work to add density would be allowing accessory dwelling units, and that can be in certain areas or island-wide. Expanding the two-family residential districts to more of the island. 95% of this island is single-family. So expanding two-family and multifamily into certain areas would help address density. Then there's zoning incentives to private developers. This can look like a lot of things, but Charleston has a really interesting one where they have a list of things that you can do, such as they do it for even like green infrastructure. You can put a green roof on your building, and you can, if you do enough of these, 6 of that, maybe you can get another height, another story to your building. So we're not going to do that here, but we could allow taller houses that are built. That would be an incentive to developers. Reduced parking would be the other zoning incentive. For people who developed affordable housing, not to have to have one parking space per bedroom, which is what we require right now. And then developing affordable housing. That would be the city either purchasing land to build a building or multiple buildings, or having existing housing that we would convert to affordable housing and essentially be landlords at that point. So that's where we are, what we've heard from, I hope those are all not new to you. But if y'all want to talk about it and see where y'all are coming down on this.
My numbers 1 and 2 are the zoning changes and financial assistance, I think, for me. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah, those are the same 2 that I have. Because there's not a lot of real estate to purchase and develop out
Maybe on James Island.
there. Yeah, but not here.
Not right on the island. The public-private partnerships, I guess I don't know what kind of organizations it would be, and then it would probably be like years, right, to realize anything from?
Because that would, well, I mean, the city could just always cut a check to somebody, but to have it specific to Folly, yes, we'd have to work on the program from the ground up to identify the housing stock that they want to use, or what method even, if they're gonna purchase, if they're gonna build homes, or if they're gonna convert existing homes. Yeah, that'd be a while.
I've been wanting to do my garage building, but we can't because I could do it, but I have to do a second story to it
You'd have to raise it? Yeah.
because of the flood. Half my property is flood, the other half is not.
Are you in residential two-family?
Yeah, yeah. So to do that, the price would quadruple. to do
Now,
it.
that is a FEMA requirement. The city cannot.
Yeah, I know
choose-
that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
know that. I know that. But I'm just saying, it could make a great affordable.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But you've got this.
Would you be thinking of zoning incentives as you can do these things if you also have a deed restriction for affordable housing, not just,
Right, I think that would
Expanding it.
have to be part of it. And that would be, the time could be up to y'all. It might be 5 to 10 years. Some people are doing 50 to 100. There's some significant opportunity there.
With that element of it, I would put zoning as one of mine too, with that kind of element to it, and financial assistance too. I guess, for me, I think there's pieces of all this that we can explore, but to break it down to where you can get deeper for us first. I think the funding sources is a whole nother topic, right? Like the
Right, and that's
public-private
gonna be left up
partnerships and-
to council how to fund.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of those out there after here in the Charleston County, all the different places they tap for funding.
Mhm.
So,
That was a lot.
it was a lot, I know,
Yeah.
so.
Just.
And they have a whole department dedicated to this too, which is how they can explore all those different options.
And then I guess developing affordable housing, I don't know what available land there is, but I see plenty of pieces of property for sale. What they cost us and how we pay for it and all that's a different conversation, obviously, but I would be interested in just seeing what that, because I think it's just gonna be a hodgepodge. I mean, I think it's gonna have to, if we're gonna actually do anything significant, it's gonna be a puzzle, putting a few initiatives together to create.
Like, going back to the public-private partnerships, not with a nonprofit, but if another idea that I liked was having a program for businesses that they also contribute to
Yeah, employer.
subsidize their employees' housing.
I actually added that to an employer voucher program.
I'm in line with Kristen that I think it's, and I know this probably doesn't help you, Jenna, but, you know, a lot of these are definitely good avenues to explore. The financial assistance, I think, absolutely, and figure out how to cover, you know, city workers as well as, you know, just workers who live out here, and whether that's through the business avenue of getting, you know, vouchers from them to use for their employees, or whatever that might look like. I do think it could be an incentive for businesses to offer that to their employees, you know, as well. And maybe, you know, I know this is Folly Beach, but maybe it goes, you know, a little bit into James Island, some of this, you know, kind of, you know, you can do more, or businesses want to say, well, we'll do James Island, and, you know, the city does subsidies for here for the public safety, or, you know, that kind of thing. Zoning changes, I think that, very carefully managed, it could be great. You know, density it's a problem, you know, and you hate to create another problem trying to solve a problem. So, I don't know, you know, I don't know how, I mean, that's like on you all, like adding, you know, well, how are we gonna manage all this? And, you know, you hate to lose parking, you hate to, you know, people, like, you know, you could add on to your garage and that'd be affordable housing, which would be great, but then, you know, somebody else is gonna wanna do that, but they're, you know, it's not gonna end up like what you're gonna have, you know, like how do we manage that so it just doesn't get rampant and all of a sudden we have another problem on our hands. I think it probably could be done in like a slow way, you know, you kind of offer it maybe in certain districts or something like that. And then, you know, I think developing affordable housing, building, I mean, I wish we could, you know, I wish there was like all this land that we could use, but, you know, maybe the city should look into purchasing housing. And I know the city does not want to be a landlord, but, you know, then you hire a company to be the landlord. You know, it's not on you all, you know, and if the city is interested in purchasing housing, maybe that's for city employees. You know, so it is a little, you know, their hands are in it a little more, a little closer as well. You know, I like the public-private partnerships, but I feel like that might be too, I don't know, we might be too small for that, you know, and I do think it'll take years to get where it's like solving a problem as well. I don't know, I don't know if I narrowed anything down for you or not.
This is all about.
More so for the record, I want to echo like the zoning part, I'm open to that, but I would want like an environmental impact study. I would want to really know if we're adding density. I just have a lot of concern on that. We're already trying to mitigate with tree ordinances and things of that sort, so we already have flooding and septic and other problems, so carefully managed, to use your words.
We're already a dense island.
Exactly.
So it would not be, I mean, I would not recommend turning all single-family districts into two-family or multi. It would be very concentrated. Here is a small area that we would allow accessory dwelling units.
And where on here is the incentives for, like, adding an incentive to a current property owner's building? Like, if you use this for long-term rental and offer a 12-month lease, which one of these captures that? Like, using existing property we already have, that we don't own, but, you know.
Zoning incentives.
So zoning incentives.
And how do you regulate zoning? How do you keep it fair for those who are already long-term renting properties to not feel as though, are you gonna basically offer it to all long-term property owners?
And that's a policy question for y'all.
Right.
How do
Because
you
then,
compare?
you know, what does that sum look like exactly? What does that number reflect? And then, and how do you incentivize a property owner? Do you find out where to meet the tenant and the property owner somewhere in the middle? Or do you make up for that X amount that they feel is pricing them out of that property? Or at what percentage do you incentivize each property if each property is different? And could a 500 a room night might be vastly different from something that someone might still need to rent out. But in terms of affordability, what does that look like in response to an incentive? I don't think that they're going to be proportional, so that's why we try and keep it fair.
Does
that make
Details we
sense?
like get into after we identify, is that one of the initiatives we want to look deeper into of how to incentivize existing
I
property
mean, I
owners?
would love to incentivize existing, use what we have rather than
Right.
deal and manage with a building, but I still feel like the funds need to, the pool needs to get stronger for that possibility of purchasing property and providing housing. I think it's just inevitable at some point, whether it's in James Island or here. For our conversation, I would like to keep it on Folly, since it is Folly residents that we're trying to support.
So to go
But
back.
ADUs are attractive. I think that's I don't know how many darts that's gonna throw on a map, but I'd be interested to know what that number would look like in terms of a healthy relationship between buildings and septics. I'd like to know how many properties that,
Yeah, I would too, like how many have a lot large enough to have it?
like, are we talking about a handful or are we talking about hundreds? What does this look like?
I have no idea what the answer is, but that's a very good question, because yes, they would have to go to DHEC for every extra bedroom that the second unit had. to
And
prove
then
that they
going
had that
back to
capacity.
the percentage, and I know this is a funding question, but have we actually discussed exactly what our A-tax is breaking down to? Like, have we actually, if we were to max out, say, our 3%, is it 2 or 3%?
I mean, add to what we could do.
Yes.
We looked into that further, we can't add.
Okay,
Because the
but what we
county-
could do is realign where that money goes to.
The money we
right?
already give.
So where does it go,
But it's
right
like
now?
up to a
General fund.
dollar amount,
One
right?
more time?
Into the general fund.
Okay.
But we have a limit on what can be used to affordable housing, right?
I thought that's what
Yes.
just changed though, right? In
That was,
Charleston County, so it can be used towards it, just.
that
still in
is, yes, allowing allowing
how-
a tax, a certain cap of how much a tax.
It's only like 42,000 bucks, right, a year?
What, no, we think it'd be about 300,000.
Yeah.
Pardon?
We think it'd be about 300,000. Lee did the numbers based on, I think the last 5 years of what we've taken in A-tax and projections for the next 2 years. And there's a statutory percentage, I can't remember off the top of my head, and whatever that was would end up being for Folly about $300,000 a year that could be used on affordable.
I'm talking about
of
the
A-tax.
allowance we have for rentals.
Yes.
And if we don't,
Saying how much?
Oh, that's
That's
only,
different.
It's only
different
40-some thousand bucks.
and when you say that sum, can we take that sum and just put it in the bank and hold on to it? Or is it something where if we don't use it, we lose it? Is it a situation where we can just take that 300 and put it in the bank and talk about it next year?
so.
To figure out how to build?
That's a
or-
good question. So again, ordinance is new, I mean, that statute is new about how that money can be spent. And we weren't even sure if you could use it to buy land, and Greenville County has now used it to buy land. So that would be a question, can we use it to sit in the bank?
Can it sit in the bank is
build,
basically
in the
what-
future for affordable housing, I don't know.
Because it's tax money that's going into the bank. So does it even get taxed every year? Like, I don't know. I guess, can you switch that into a bond over time? Like, what can you do with that money
These
every
are
year?
all questions I cannot.
I know it's a
answer.
funding, but that's kind of where so if I'm gonna prioritize, then I would first like to know, what's our sum that we're working with? Can we split it up between 3 of these and start working on 2 while we get the third beefed up a bit? Like, how much money? It's hard for me to know, other than asking a business to shake hands with the city and make a match agreement. It's hard for me to know how to prioritize these, because I don't know what numbers we're working with.
This is hard. What I'm about to say, but if you can just not think about the money,
Yeah, but that's kind of where I go.
that will be
Always.
council's decision at some point. This is, I guess, more of a wish list. This is how.
Okay, well, ADUs would be on the property owner. You want to let them do an ADU, they do it themselves. That would be a solution in the short term while we figure out a long term, right? So I guess could we just get some more information on how many that could accommodate, and then,
How many how many properties might be able to.
could even
take
apply to.
Especially when you think about, like, the environmental side. So I think we're trying to help her narrow down 3 or 4 things to focus on and go get more information so we can figure out what it might cost, what it
Yeah.
might look like, right? I mean, it's a little bit of chicken or the egg, I guess.
And the financial questions further along in this process will be a little bit more apparent. It's just too nebulous, I think, at this point. But if we narrow it down and get to the nitty gritty, we may have more of those
Okay, because
answers.
if I were to have 5 wishes, I would pick all 5. So if I'm rubbing the lamp, then, and I
What's
have
your
unlimited
first
funds, then let's do all of it.
What's your
You
first
could
wish?
order.
Yeah, what's your
Yeah.
first?
But if we're working with $300,000 a year,
I think we have
maybe,
to
Well, now,
disregard that.
then we're gonna have to just do like 1.
The 300,000 is only the A tax that can be set aside for.
Right.
The city can write a check for $1 million
Right.
tomorrow out of the general fund, but
Right.
that 300,000 just comes from A tax
Right.
For affordable housing.
for affordable housing.
Right.
It's only what you can divert
I
from
like it
that.
because, so financial assistance, especially for like public safety, based on what they get now and the average of what they get paid, like, I think it needs to be at least 2,500, so knowing we have a sum like that potentially to work with.
Yeah,
So,
that's-
I'll say that's how we can make the fastest and most direct impact,
That's
right there.
That's
So,
the easy it's not easy, but that's the
Yeah.
quickest
To get
financial
it-
solution.
To get it
And
moving.
To Chris's
Yeah.
point, putting math on that turnover,
mhm,
that turnover is
60,000
probably 300,000 more that we're throwing away.
mhm.
And you reinvest that to bring your pay up to the mid 50, 60th percent of the pay band, that in itself will help reduce the turnover, which will reduce the cost. I do that,
Now,
I
would we
do it
be
every
giving
day.
them this pay and say, you can accept this pay if you would like to, just an increase in, like a raise is what you're discussing?
Yeah,
Kind
Could you
of.
incentivize them further and say, and you could also get this sum if you live on Folly, not on James Island, but on Folly?
Yeah.
I mean,
They do
public
give-
safety's already doing that as a subsidy.
Right.
yeah, the subsidy's doing that.
You could make that more money, you can make it available to more
Right.
people, you could, yeah.
From their own fund,
Yeah.
from the police,
Well, from the city of Valley Beach, yeah,
Right.
it's from their general fund, that,
it's still coming from the general fund, even the,
I don't know if it's coming from the general fund, but it's coming just from the city of Valley Beach. There's not a special account somewhere for for subsidies, so public
police.
safety.
Jenna, remind me, you mentioned this before, and I can't remember what the answer was, of however much is available right now, or however many spots there are to take the $600 a month or whatever it is. Is it all being maxed out currently with what's available right now? It's being maxed out
Mhm.
every
For
year?
the most part, if somebody leaves, there might be a month or two where there's some fluctuation, but it's generally used every month.
But, okay, so it's, what we have set aside right now is being used, so- which leads us down that, if it wasn't being fully used now, we're kind of going down, barking up a wrong tree, because
It's definitely.
create more money, but
It's definitely.
unless it was a bigger chunk, like $600 isn't enough, you know?
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
I think financial assistance, and especially if we put that employer voucher program in there, there's a lot of models with like Breckenridge and in Vermont, a lot of these ski towns that have worked with employers in their communities, like to work out a way, because the same thing that you just said is true, it costs money to turn over, and so if that has if it's enticing to an employer to help support housing for their employees, the employee is gonna wanna make sure they don't
Yeah, it's an
screw up at
employee
work, they're gonna
benefit.
have a lot more retainment at work, I would think, you know, that's kind of what my thoughts are.
Yeah, and then that will cover the cost. But we need to know, is it the housing incentive, or is it the base pay that's a problem, or C, all of the
I
above?
would think they're all both.
It's probably gonna be both, but the turnover alone will, reduction of that, I found if you're in the 50th to 60th percent of the pay band, the turnover drops 50% by just getting to that level in the market.
You're talking a police officer making $68,000 a year, 30% of that is 1,700. There's no housing available on this island for $1,700 for anybody to rent.
And
Correct.
that's kind of
So
where this assistance comes
rather than
in.
going through all this complicated, all of these scenarios, why don't we just pay them?
That's kind of my perspective.
I mean,
Part of
I'm
this-
serious.
part
I
of
mean,
this is
I've had businesses and pay them. You want to retain, you know, $10,000, 79 people, $790,000 divided by 2,300 residents.
Right,
Rather
but
than
you're-
trying to get the city all dirtied up as far as managing this, pay them.
I'll
Yeah,
add
that-
that as a,
Huh?
I'm gonna add that as a solution.
Oh, I think
Right.
you should add it
Yeah.
as a solution, because I think it makes
That's-
sense,
that's
because
the-
you're gonna have to hire people to manage this program. And this
That's
is,
my exact point.
it is difficult.
Every time I take.
I mean, how dirty do you wanna get? I mean, you get down in the weeds in this thing, this is gonna be hard to manage. I mean, you're talking ADUs, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, what head count
But
do
there's
you-
not,
There would be-
that would be
that's
a
a
great
higher-
solution in an
Pardon?
ideal world, but I think that if we're just talking about city staff is one thing, but if you're trying to accommodate
The-
an
the-
array.
Well, the business
The
people
same
aren't my
math.
responsibility. I mean, I don't believe, as an individual, I mean, if any of these establishments downtown can't get enough people, then they need to pay them more on their own. It shouldn't be my responsibility, or yours, I don't believe, or the city's.
But it wouldn't be a responsibility if we're pulling money from certain areas that are actually somewhat responsible for the inflated costs of its
Yeah.
being.
But we'll know soon enough from the surveys, do the residents of Folly want us to only focus on public safety and city, or do they want us to?
I think
Find a
that's what we
solution
should
for
focus
everything.
on.
Well, and/or
Right
businesses
now.
willing to, what's their
That's a
threshold?
priority. If it takes
to
$60,000
help their employees.
every time we lose somebody,
But are we losing
Well,
them
that's-
because of the
that's a
pay?
fact.
Or because of
That's-
having to drive all the way from I realize they may have to live far out because of the pay, but if you increase the pay, are they gonna move closer and not have that drive? Like, are we losing them all because of the pay, or is it because they can't live here? You know what I
I
mean?
think the
Because
higher
If they have
pay is
to
probably
drive
just
from-
gonna
from-
fund
I know.
their
It'd
house
be
on
both
John's
business
Island.
if they have
It's
to
gonna be
drive
like-
from Goose Creek,
kind of
We're in
thing.
an inflated area. I mean,
But you
the
just
cost of
can't
living
manage.
out here is astronomical. And it's not because, you know, an independent business, it's not just because they're not paying their employees enough. We're in an idyllic area, demographically speaking, it's a slice of heaven. So it's going to be so inflated to where businesses, they can't absorb that entirety of a cost and just pay their employees an astronomical amount to match that of an astronomically inflated area. That's gotta come from multiple sources. If we can't expect it to just come from a business owner.
And that's what relates, like, the city first responders is probably what we're really talking about in a lot of ways, the police and firefighter. I think part of it is that we want them to be able to be convenient and local and available and, you know, first responders. So you can pay them more, but that's just gonna help fund a house in Goose Creek, or,
Exactly.
right? So like, I guess
Exactly.
part of it, and it's, can't put my finger on the right words for it, but part of it is providing housing for people who work in the community, so they're part of the community, so they're available to the community.
So that
If you
our
just pay somebody
residents-
more, great, I can buy more house on Johns Island or Goose Creek or
But
farther away. That doesn't mean that you can, you know,
And Kristen,
necessarily afford.
you're right, like, and because think, we live on an island in the middle of the summer, to have a couple of public safety guys living here and they can't get on or off, you know, like, that's value, like, that's definitely is valuable to have folks who are here, and whether that's, paying them more and also giving them a subsidy as well, you know, to make it, because, you know,
That's a combination. It has to
yeah,
be, right?
yeah, it's
Well,
it's
then
gotta
you
be.
increase the number of people on night shift. I mean, no, I'm serious. I just don't understand how can you manage this?
Well, the
Some
zoning
of it
changes.
I mean, the fact of it is, I mean, you're not paying them enough
I think
to
it's a
stay.
lot on this
That's
paper,
one angle,
but-
and you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, you're right. I don't think that they're paying them. That's not the only
Right.
answer. It's just, I don't think it's.
So in summary,
Quite
it
possible
sounds
to make
like
it.
we all agree financial assistance is high on our list, zoning changes maybe right below that,
Mhm.
and then,
I mean, we've got to remember that we are a
Long-term,
city.
looking at
We are
some
not a like
affordable
closed
housing.
gated community. We're
Yeah,
not a
I mean,
resort.
all of
We
them,
are a we need, in
those
order to
are
have a
our
functioning city, you
mutual
have to have
talking.
all walks of life, living and breathing in a city to have a healthy, sustainable community. So it's not just, oh, it's not my problem. It's our problem. It's business's problem. It's property owner's problem. It's a systemic issue.
And to
And-
Kevin's point, everything on here, maybe except for financial assistance, would require hiring city staff. Maybe more
Would
than
be, require what?
hiring city staff,
Yeah.
hiring more
Yep.
staff.
So when we get to the, because we don't have to think about money right now, we just add that line item to the discussion about how to fund these things.
But hiring staff to make something work, you know, is, you know, it shouldn't be something that we're like, oh God, they're gonna have to hire more people to, you know, to make, you know, 3 of these things work. Because you wanna hire the staff so that it can work. you
Sure,
know,
I'm
so
saying
it's
it
done
that does add to the cost.
really well, right, right.
Plus, it kind of pays for itself if we
Yeah.
don't lose somebody and have to spend the $60,000 to retrain somebody, then that one position, I don't know how much we pay them, but there's
it would be a second zoning official, right? Just because the workload would increase.
housing.
Yeah.
Zoning, housing.
Yeah. it would be.
So the survey will kind of drive a lot of this too,
That's
like
what I'm
once we
thinking.
get some of that input from all of the various, you know,
Residents
needs
and
of
property
residents
owners.
and business owners and employees and all that too.
Because today, we don't really know what our residents want us to focus on. So, yeah. Okay, I think we all agree on which ones we wanna focus on. Are we good to move on?
Yes.
For the first priorities, right? Just to get
Yeah.
started, yeah.
This doesn't cancel any
Right, doesn't take anything off, it
options.
just gets our little directions and
Yeah.
start digging deeper. Right?
Jenna's got the hardest job for sure. You said you have the hardest job for sure, like taking the ideas.
But she's.
You gave us 5
fabulous
things
at
and
it.
we say all of them.
Yeah. It's a puzzle. Who said that?
Okay, so next we're looking at ordinance 2324 to amend the code of ordinances to require replanting with native species when the marsh buffer is disturbed.
So this came about because of one specific instance where someone cut down 24 trees in the marsh buffer that, without a permit, but they would not have, even if they had a permit, they would not have been allowed to take these down. We realized we don't have any mitigation for that. So we couldn't say you have to replant, we have nothing to point to. So that's what this is addressing.
But the tree ordinance applied, right? At
But
least
not
that.
Oh, they got fined.
Okay.
They got very much fined for the violation, but we couldn't make them put anything back. And so this would be requiring to put in, we say compatible native vegetation. That's the same list from the marsh management plan that we send to people who are putting in a new home. We say in the marsh buffer, here are the things that you can plant. So they would have to do that at a rate of one planting for every 25 square feet, which is kind of small. That's only 5 feet by 5 feet, but we're not talking about canopy trees. We're talking about groundsel and marsh elder and things like that, or even just grass and sweetgrass. So that's what this does, or would do.
That one of my questions was where the 25 square foot came from, but it is just 5 by 5, and so you don't have more than 1 or 2 little plants in that area typically, right?
Wait, what's the question?
I was, in my mind, I'm thinking it's a big area, but it really is only
No.
like 5 by 5, so you're not gonna have like 10 plants in that kind of square footage.
Right.
This is a no man's land is basically what we're saying. It's not their property, it's,
No, this is on somebody's, yes, in their property. But
okay,
there's a buffer that they cannot disturb.
okay.
So 15 feet from the critical line on the ocean, on the riverside, you cannot remove anything in there.
Okay.
And people do. And so, and that's addressed separately, so they still get a fine, that part is addressed. But this is just adding to this, they'd have to do this in their yards.
Because right now, they would just do it, pay the
They would pay
fine,
the
Pay the fine and move
and
on.
nothing would have to be put back.
So
Okay.
they can't just throw money in the kitty and say,
Right.
it's fine, y'all do something with it. They have to actually,
Correct.
so they have to submit a plan.
Yes.
So in advance, they have to submit a plan, if they didn't just take it out, they have to submit a plan for what they're gonna take out and what they're gonna replace it with.
Well,
and
they can't
where.
take anything out. This is after they've taken it out illegally.
How do we know this then? Like, how do we know what was in that 5-foot area?
Well, we don't know, but we know how big the space is, and they have to, do this.
Okay, so if
within
there's
that
nothing there now, we're
What's the
assuming
fine
there was
if they
something
don't do
there.
it?
$500.
Like every
It's just
30 days,
normal.
or
Yeah, we could do an everyday.
So,
every 30 days
they
you go
pull it out.
without
they get fined
at it.
because they pulled it out. You say, bring in your plans and put some stuff back in. What they don't, it's $500,
I
you see?
mean, in my experience, I'm gonna say they're gonna do it.
But what if,
But
what's the
if-
fine if
but
they don't?
$500 is our standard fine.
And it's just a one-time $500.
If we wanted to pursue it, we could probably do it daily.
Daily?
That's a better incentive for people
I
not to
think so
do
too.
it.
Right.
You know,
Just
hit them,
add-
hit 'em where it hurts,
Daily?
you know, daily,
I mean, we already have that capacity.
daily.
And every day is a new violation.
If you do it, you pay. And go pay big
I don't know
bucks.
if I'd say
I don't-
500 a day.
Well,
I don't think.
no,
it would.
not 500,
When this
but
happens,
Yeah.
people
there will
are.
be
I think you need to have time to.
a
get the
percentage,
grants.
of the 500
Up to
per
30
day
days.
after.
Oh,
Then we when we can tinker with how our structure for fees work. But I don't think it's gonna come to this.
A $500 fine just once is
They're saying that people. just
not even
pay.
worth my time to pick up I mean, if I were like, I don't wanna do it, I'd just pay $500, not have to arrange somebody to come and plant some stuff, right?
It'd
So,
be more
but
harsh.
daily is a little intense, cause what if you're trying to line stuff up?
Then we'd be talking to you and give
Well, you say
us-
like upon notification, it's 30 days after
It
you've
would
been
be at the
notified
point
or
where they said,
something.
no, we are not planting anything, that would be when the fines would start. If they're working on a plan, then they would.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we should do something with that fine.
well, I think it should be up to 30 days from when they're notified, 500, and then after that, it can
Yeah.
Yeah, then it could actually, then
Yeah,
it
give
is
them
a
time to
$500
do
a
it.
day. You have 30
Yeah.
days to get it done. You get your one-time $500 fee. You get 30 days from the time you're notified to get it done, organize, get your planters. And then after that, you could make it $500 a day because you had 30 days to get it
Right.
in.
Or, obviously ask for an extension if it's not working out, but you're working on it. Like
We're gonna be
that's-
building affordable housing with our tree fund.
So can we
That's
assume
what it
that
sounds like
approved
to me.
plants that they have to put in there are easy to come by? It's not like I gotta order them from,
Jenna now has so many native plant people she knows that can give, she can give you a list of people that
We
have
can
them.
point them in the right direction, absolutely.
But I do want to go back to, how do we know what was there before and how,
Oh,
what was
we
it?
don't, I mean, we
We
don't
don't know.
well,
necessarily.
it doesn't matter what was there before.
Because
Because
I
I
know
know
there has
like
to be
you said-
something there, so we don't necessarily have a way to prove whether it was taken out, because we don't have.
If this happens because somebody takes out a tree, we get notice, we run down there and we have evidence that there's a tree missing from this location. There's a stump,
Right.
or there's a dead tree, or a recently alive tree lying down.
Right.
And so we can say, this is the area that you just cut
On
from.
the trees.
now you have to repopulate it based on this calculation.
New requirements.
And so how do we know what was there? I mean, that comes down, that question comes up more often. How do we know how much to find them when they do take it down?
Right.
And so we had to use Google Maps last time.
And show the trees.
And just look at it. I printed out a big, long panoramic view, and just wrote them down a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and counted 24 trees, and said, that's on you to the homeowner to prove me wrong.
Love it.
And they said, okay, we can't prove you wrong. So yeah, we took down 24 trees.
They're probably like, whew, it took down 100, all she could count was 24.
We have
Okay.
Eric on that.
And that,
We have Eric on that. Eric.
oh, yeah.
Jenna, I just had a question, like when I was reading through it about, and I just wanted, kind of looking for to understand the difference between 3B and 3C. Like it talks about shall maintain a minimum marsh buffer of at least 10 linear feet, and then C is 15 linear feet. Like what's the,
It's what, before March 1st, 2019, then the 10 feet applies.
so
and-
three, but then what about, what's B?
Okay, I'm gonna go through it just from the start. from the
Okay.
top. So A is, there is a marsh buffer, that's what it's saying. And what that means is in that 15 feet from the critical line, which is where the marsh vegetation starts, it's determined by vegetation. The critical line is determined by.
And it changes all the time.
And it changes all the time. From that line, 15 feet in, you cannot, landward, you cannot take any trees, planting, and you can't put anything there, like a gazebo or any sort of structure in that area. So the exemptions to that, so that's the overall, that's the marsh buffer.
Right.
So B starts the exemptions. Number 1 allows for docks, basically docks and bulkheads. Number 2, I don't know what this is, mariculture uses in the marine code, that, I don't know what that is or where that
And the
came
MC,
from.
what's
Beds,
MC
Never-
district?
What'd you say?
Probably like planting oyster beds.
Oyster beds, right?
Possibly. Yeah,
I would think
It doesn't
something
come up.
like
Okay.
farm raised, something.
What is
like that.
What's MC district?
MC district?
Marine, marine
Marine
commercial,
commercial.
that's.
Marine-
Marine.
Marine
Or commercial.
Sunset Cape.
Yeah, yeah,
A
okay,
sunset cake.
okay.
Number 3 is established primary and accessory structures before March 2019. This is when this ordinance was changed. Allowing them to build back, if those houses are torn down, they can build back to the 10-foot buffer. That's what number 3 does. So right now it's 15 feet, but if you have a house that was built before 2019 and is destroyed in a hurricane, your buffer would only be 10 feet.
And what's-
Also
what's the
for, but it
reality?
also says for substantial improvement,
Right, which is 50% if you.
which if you're keeping it under the 50%, then you have the 10 feet.
If you're going over the 50%.
Over the 50%, substantial improvement, okay, okay.
So if you're basically building a new house or
Right,
building an addition.
okay.
It's to give those people who already had houses kind of close,
They can
this
put
is
it
a
back.
compromise at the time that that was passed.
Okay.
To allow them just a little bit less of a buffer.
Okay,
So
right,
that's what number 3 does.
right. And-
And then, so those are the exemptions. The exemptions are those people who have a house standing before 2019, and then your seawall, your bulkheads and your docks and things like that. Those are things that can go in the marsh buffer. C is, let's see. That sets the buffer, that's 15 feet.
So that's for anything after March 1st,
Yep.
2019?
If you
That's
have a
when they
newer
created
house,
that ordinance, and at the time, it was felt that there were so many residents on the marsh side, and there were no real setbacks from it at the time, and so it was like, there's already so many that are really close to it, that they put that 10-foot in there for them.
So if you have a house that was built in 2022 and it's destroyed by a hurricane,
Existing homes.
you
Yours have to do
you have to do
15.
the 15.
You have to do the
foot.
15,
Mhm.
okay, okay.
Anything going forward is 15. That is just a very small exception for some people, some properties that existed before, before that ordinance was passed.
Okay, I got it.
Got it?
Yep, yep. And only other thing is, and maybe you don't need to do this, is in the red, what you're amending. It just says in the event of disturbance. I wonder if, because you kind of outline what all those disturbances might be, Like, I wonder if you need to outline it again, or, you know, if that just leaves it too open for, you know, interpretation of what a disturbance might be. You know,
Well, I
'cause
think it's in the event of any disturbance.
any
of the-
disturbance. I mean, I don't know if you would wanna, you know, put out, well, do we need to
Like legal
define
or
that?
illegal.
Do we need to define any disturbance, like
Or just
Like
add the
when-
word any,
any disturbance?
Yeah. you can add
because it
any.
would
Any
apply
disturb-
across
then
the board.
That's everything.
Legal or
Okay,
illegal
yeah.
removal.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we need a motion to approve this, and then you can motion to amend
Okay.
to add them.
I did, I'm sorry, I got one more question. So, am I right that it already says this, but just to make it clear, I think you just answered this, but the owner has to do it. They have to pay
Yes.
for it, take care of it, has to get done. We're gonna talk about timing and all that, but there's no throwing money in a kitty. You know, this ordinance anywhere, okay. Just making sure. You've done this with the tree thing enough.
Yeah,
I
and
know I
they-
asked earlier, and I wanna make sure it still applies as we've gone through it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, there's no option to pay into a tree fund for this,
Okay,
as written.
so is there a motion to approve recommendation of the addition of number 2? What is it?
Motion to approve.
C2.
C2. Second, all right, any discussion?
Just a second, hold on. Michael, you made that motion?
Mhm.
Just a second.
Mike did.
Amy second.
No.
Okay,
Aye.
a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
I second, yeah.
I third.
Let's put your vote.
And do you want?
Okay, and I would like to make an amendment to, let's see, 3C2, is that right?
C2.
C2, to add in the word any, so it reads, mitigation shall be required in the event of any disturbance of the marsh buffer.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
All right, will you call the roll? And here we are voting to approve the amendment.
Give me just a second here. All right, Ms. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. McDade,
Yes.
Ms. McNatt,
Yes.
Mr. Norton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Yes.
Ms. Ray,
Yes.
and Ms. Stubblefield.
Yes.
Okay.
And now we need to vote to approve the ordinance as amended for recommendation to council.
All right. Ms. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell,
Yes.
Mr. Norton,
Yes.
Ms. McNatt,
Yes.
Mr. McDade,
Yep.
Ms. Capel, and Ms. Stubblefield.
Yes.
Motion's all passed.
All right, ordinance 24-24 prohibiting the rental of accessory uses separately from the associated communities.
All right, so this is in response to an app called Swimply that allows you to rent out your pool by the hour. And I have not seen anybody on Folly doing this. There are some houses on James Island right now that you can.
Jenna,
you can
there
do
are
this.
some on
There are on
Folly.
Folly. Okay, when I checked, there wasn't, but are they're on that app or through another one?
They're renting,
You know,
they're
just,
renting.
you mean actually doing it? Yeah, when I checked the app, I couldn't find anybody using this one specifically. I'm sure it happens. So renting a pool brings the same concerns as a short-term rental. These are people doing it, if you're renting a pool, you're having a party, right, a pool party. So you're talking more parking, noise, and trash. And so what this does is.
And permit.
And what?
A permit to have a party.
Oh, well, we don't do that.
We don't anymore?
Wait, no permits to have a party. I mean,
Over
well, you have- if you
25
have
people.
Over
25
25
yeah,
people,
You have to go
yes.
through,
Right.
right. But if you're just in your backyard inviting people over,
Oh,
which is essentially what this would be like. It's like you own the house and you're allowing people to come over to your pool. What am I getting back here? So this
Rowdy.
So this ordinance you would not be able to rent out just your pool, only the entire home. And so that means, I don't know how this works logistically, but people who are renting the house separately and the pool separately, or just the pool, I mean, just the pool for 4 hours, and the house is not being rented out. It would prohibit that, You could only rent the pool out as part of the entire house, and there would be the same 2-day minimum as a short-term rental is required on the island right now.
I think the wording is confusing where, because it says the minimum rental period for any accessory use or structure shall be 2 days.
Yeah, I had
We
read
don't
about
want
that.
them to,
I think it's
Minimum rental period should be
duplicative, you
2
don't need
days.
to, you can't, like, we're saying you can't rent it at all, so we don't need to say
for
a
any
minimum of 2
accessory
days.
use.
You can rent it with the entire house.
With the whole house.
Yeah, but then you
Right.
wouldn't be
Okay, but
you're
separately
renting the
renting it.
house.
Right,
You'd
so
just
I
be
think-
renting the house.
I thought that's what this was about, separately renting your pool.
Yeah,
It is, so I think on number 8, right, it says not to be rented in exchange for compensation. You already said it can't be rented, aside from
I think we
the
could
whole
just strike
property.
that last
And we
line.
scratched the minimum rental
Yeah.
for the accessory, because you see what it's saying, it's saying.
Okay, because if it
Because you
is
can't
rented
rent
with
the
the entire
accessory.
house, it's already subject to the
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
Exactly.
good point.
So I don't think we need,
Strike it.
yep.
all right, anybody else have any
Um,
comments?
Well, do we need to define, like, it's a pool, it's a hot tub, it's a fire pit, it's, I
All
mean,
of
it says
those.
all of this is in it, but do we need to put, because I know that the last council meeting, it was like, what are we talking about? And I think Tim was like, can't rent a pool, but
It's,
people are renting hot tubs separately and pools
the
and,
point is pools, but all those are already defined as accessory uses.
Okay.
And so it would catch anything like that.
That would
would
catch
all
like
already
the
be-
rooftop,
yeah.
okay.
Well, no, not a rooftop, because that would be.
Would it catch,
If it's your,
like,
if it's your primary house, that would just be your home.
Yeah, but what if I had a rooftop? Like, there's a house 2 doors down from me that has like a flat roof area up there.
And they're not renting out the house for a nightly rate, they rent
Do
it
like
out
a
for an
party
afternoon
space.
for a party. but-
Right, that's not gonna come under this.
What about like
It's
swim
accessory.
lesson rentals?
What?
Like it-
That came up in Mount Pleasant.
What is it?
recently.
Well, I mean, like, I take Livia to a couple of like random houses. They're not on the island. They're like all over Charleston because,
I think that comes down to whether that person is a business license and approved with their own counsel to actually run a business.
And
which-
that's not renting out your pool.
That's not renting your pool, that's hiring a person to teach your kids.
but they are, because I checked, because one of them was out, and I asked the owner of the house who lived there if, how this arrangement works with them having the liability of all these little kids on their property, and they're like, oh, well, I rent it out to this
So that would not be allowed.
The instructor rents it out.
company that does the swim lesson.
That would not be allowed under this then.
Yeah, that wouldn't be allowed.
Right, but how would you catch it? Because that's not on Swimply or whatever it is. That's an arrangement between
When the
a
neighbors. come
swimming,
on.
a swim lesson.
We hear about
It
it.
seems like the spirit of the ordinance is to not,
Right, we're not, that's not. the
Meanwhile,
target.
I am trying to find swim
right, the
lessons.
spirit of the ordinance is you can't rent out an accessory pool, hot tub, whatever, for an hourly rate or a nightly rate, like a short-term rental is rented out, because it tends to be a party. I mean, it tends to be, right, so I think it's a good point, because if you get really technical, can I borrow Amy Ray's pool to have swim lessons in her pool? It's, it's sort of a different topic, but it could,
Yeah, the
prevent
point is
that.
for
And
people
that's a
having
business.
parties, not
As a
people
business,
having
That's
a
right.
swim lesson.
Right.
But if
So
it
are we
becomes an
saying it
issue,
is
then-
allowed or is it isn't?
We'll be back, yeah.
So is it allowed? Is it allowed then for people to loan up their pool for swim lessons?
No.
3 people.
Not under this.
Okay. Bummer.
All right, you don't have any other questions?
Yep.
Is there a motion to approve the number 8?
the change to number 8.
We have to make a motion to approve it, and then somebody else has to make a motion to amend it.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it. And then
All right.
someone has
Mr. McDade?
Hold on.
Wait, we got a motion to,
Somebody has to make a
to fix
motion
8.
to amend.
Does this apply to porches?
Yeah?
No, the porch is
Anything.
part of the primary structure. Not
Well-
not
Are we
accessory.
sure?
well, let's do talk about that, because I think what we're saying is, if you have a house, you rent the whole thing, the yard, the porch, the everything, and that's a rental agreement for an overnight short-term rental with a minimum of 2 nights. Like, that's one thing, but if a rooftop, a porch, a pool, a hot tub, all those are accessories, right? So, to me, I'm understanding that we're saying, no, you couldn't rent just the porch.
What about your driveway? Can you rent the driveway?
Well, hold on, as we're planning to amend, the word accessory is not even gonna be in there. So it says not be rented in exchange for compensation separately from an associated primary use, and I think that would
Square foot of your
encompass
property.
everything on
Everything.
one
Yeah.
I
property.
think so
Yeah.
too,
I don't think we need to,
as long as we amend it.
yeah, the word accessory just wouldn't even apply.
Right, because this,
Well,
number
it's
8 is
in the-
connected to C, so you start at C. All accessory uses and structures shall, number 8, not be rented or used in
So
exchange.
that would encompass the porch.
It would, yes.
Yes. And so you need a motion to amend just number 8.
Mhm. Could be you.
I motion to amend number 8, where I think we just strike off the second sentence altogether,
Yep.
right? So the minimum rental period for any accessory use or structure rented jointly with an associated primary use shall be 2 days. Just get rid of that whole thing.
Okay.
Right?
Second.
All right.
All right, will you call the roll to vote for the amendment?
Mr. McDade?
Yep.
Ms. Capel?
Yes.
Ms. McNatt?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
And Ms. Stubblefield?
Yes. And then please call the roll to vote to approve the ordinance as amended to council.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Ms. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Ms. McNatt?
Yes.
Ms. Capel?
Yes.
Mr. McDade?
Yep.
And Ms. Stubblefield?
Yes.
Tina, on that, so I know it has to go back to council and they vote and whatever. Is this something that would go into effect like immediately and be enforceable, or is this like, when does it become enforceable?
I was gonna say, there's something called the pending ordinance doctrine, which allows a city to deny permits for building if there's something in the works that hasn't quite gotten passed yet. There's not anything for this. It would, after it goes back to council and is read 2 times.
Yep.
So this will be
So
on,
second reading if they pass it.
it'll be on the December council, wait, what month are we in? No, this could be, we can get this in November.
Yeah.
Council meeting for first reading, second reading in December.
Okay. And then it's after that.
And then it is
it's-
an ordinance of Folly Beach.
This might be one that's, I don't know how we communicate as a city, big changes like this, but it might be, I think, just fair to make sure that some of these things look more, actually anything. Where do people go to go see what's happened and what's new? Or something like this one?
We do put all new ordinances on the website for a period of a couple months.
Is this like a
after-
newsflash, new
This
ordinances?
is what's been passed recently. So that's what we do.
Just trying to be fair to people, because it hasn't, this is a new thing.
Right.
And we haven't
Right.
had a lot of conversation about it, so.
Any commission comments? I have one. I was gonna tell y'all, I did ask Jenna if it is okay or appropriate to share on like social media, cause I was thinking with all the great comments we get online that we never get to hear in here, that when we're ready to do the next public hearing, that I would put it on these different Facebook groups and say, this is what we're doing, we want you to come. And she said, that's okay, so if y'all see me posting stuff, please don't think I'm out of line. I'm just trying to get more people to participate.
I think it's great.
Please
Yeah.
do spread the word in all of your formats, Facebook, email. You know, when the next meeting comes up, or just texting your friend, I mean, telling the people that you know and having these conversations. And I am gonna put it up at the library and the post office too.
I think that's helpful. I think people share out, the planning commission has a meeting and here's the agenda, but there's not a lot of context to it. So
Well,
you guys are gonna work together.
I
on what
shared it, and a lot of
proposed.
people thought it was at council. I was like, no, this
Right.
is planning commission. But I think too, like, if you wanna give us like the
That's
words
what I'm thinking.
too, like, so we're all sharing like the same thing and nothing gets confused or anything like that, like that might be, you know, hey, here's the blurb that you can, you can push out. That might help too. And then if everybody's seeing it on the same channels, then that's, that's it, that's what's happening or
And I
whatever.
think we all know some people who this dramatically has affected, could affect and help, whatnot, so I know I'll reach out, I did a little bit beforehand just to say offline, come here and provide commentary or email it in, you know, or
Yeah.
there's multiple ways to get your voice heard, and I think it was just, people weren't following along, so I think next time we'll probably have a little bit more participation.
And put something in the Sandsbar too.
I think so
mean,
too.
Mhm,
you know,
absolutely.
In the current, maybe the current will
Mhm, okay.
share some
Okay.
space.
Any other commission comments? Staff comments?
I do not have any.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right, appreciate it.
So that's my job.
That's your job now.